Always great to visit with our good friend, United States Senator James Lankford. And first off, Senator, always appreciate you taking the time.
I'm really glad to be able to do it. Good to get a chance to connect with you again.
Senator, there's so much going on in Washington. I know the infrastructure bill is kind of at the top of the list for folks right now, one of the big notes, and wanted to get your thoughts on the newly passed bill, sir.
So it's not passed yet at this point. It's taken its first procedural step. Quite frankly, none of us have seen all the text on it yet. That's been my frustration. Is last week, Chuck Schumer tried to bring it up and no one had seen any text. Yesterday, he brought it up again, and about 2/3 of the text is out, and 1/3 of it we still haven't seen. And it was still moved. Some of my brethren still voted and said, hey, let's go ahead and start voting on it anyway, though no one's actually read all of it yet. So we'll start going through. We should get the rest of the text today. What I've started in the process on, about half of it is a normal infrastructure bill, like we do for highways, like I've voted on multiple times and been engaged with. And about half of it is saying, well, these are above and beyond things that we haven't paid for. We'll just take out loans to be able to cover, but we really want to do it. And so I'm working my way through it to say, hold on, we just did $4 trillion worth of spending last year on COVID. Democrats did another $2 trillion because they wanted to earlier this year. Their budget's coming out at $6 trillion. And now there's at least $500 billion that's in more debt spending on infrastructure. So we're working our way through this to say, when do we have to pay for things actually, rather than just say we want it and so let's do it.
And Senator, I know that one of the things I noticed your latest tweet was breaking it down in dollars into time. And whenever you put it like that, I mean, you don't really put the zeros after it. It doesn't mean quite the same as whenever you look at seconds between a million, a billion, and a trillion. I mean, how much of a huge difference that really is.
Yeah, it is funny. It's hard to be able to get a million and a billion, and we sometimes just block off and say, okay, that millions, billions, trillions, it's all the same. If you break millions of dollars into seconds, a million seconds is 11 and a half weeks. Okay, 11 and a half weeks, that's a million seconds. A billion seconds is 31 and a half years. So it's a huge difference between a million and a billion, but a trillion seconds is not 31 and a half years. That's a billion. A trillion is 31,688 years. So when people throw these numbers around and you say, oh, it's just a trillion, you need to pause and think, oh, that's a big, big, big number. And right now we're up at $27 trillion in total debt as a country. And we have got to start dealing with, why are we overspending every time? Again, we need infrastructure. I would vote for an infrastructure bill that is infrastructure that we're paying for, that we're actually going through the process. But as I'm reading through this one, there's a lot of things that are not paid for, a lot. And it's just, hey, we'll just take out more debt and we'll figure it out later. We've got to figure out, when does that stop and how do we actually do the infrastructure that needs to be done? We've got highways and roads that are on our normal infrastructure plan right now in Oklahoma. Those are good things. But when are we going to stop just overspending? That's the bigger question.
And I know that this is something that you've talked about before and gave warnings ahead that additional spending while the economy is accelerating is going to cause inflation. And Senator, give you a chance to kind of break that down for our listeners as well.
So early this year, I was really warning Democrats that if they passed this $2 trillion spending bill, which would just throw money out there in every area of the economy, it would cause inflation. It would cause a rise in prices on everything because there's money out there and people aren't working at the same level, and it's going to cause problems. And they basically said, we want to do this. COVID at that time was dramatically down. Our employment was up. Those were all good things. But what we have seen in the last really 5 months since that bill came out in March is the price of milk, the price of bread, the price of bacon, the price of gas, the price of lumber, the price of houses, the price of cars. Everything has gone up significantly. And they can't just say, well, this is a reaction to COVID. It's not. It's a reaction to $2 trillion in overspending. Now they're talking about dropping another trillion on top of that. And then on top of that trillion, they want to then do another $3.5 trillion of spending in September. People have got to realize it's nice to get free money in the mail, but when the price of milk, bread, eggs, bacon, gas, houses, cars, everything goes up, it saps away all that money that government's throwing at you, and prices just keep going up and up and up to be able to compensate for all the free money going out.
In other news, I wanted to give you a chance to talk about President Biden's ATF nominee, David Chipman. I know you've had the chance to do some researching and wanted to get your thoughts on his nominee as well.
Yeah, David Chipman should not be the leader of ATF. David Chipman is an activist, anti-gun guy, and he should not be the one actually leading ATF in firearms leadership. We need somebody that's going to be a pro-Second Amendment person that's going to help manage to make sure that we have illegal firearms off the street, and we're continuing to enforce law, but not one that's going to sit in regulations and try to create law from ATF. And that's been pretty clear. That's what he's going to try to do, is say we can't pass a law on this, so let's just try to make up our own law from regulations. That's not what we should do as a country. And so we've strongly opposed Chipman's nomination. We continue to be able to work with Democrats to try to find a way to be able to block it. So far, we've been successful at that we've been able to be very, very clear behind the scenes for some Democrats why this is important. And for some of these Democrats in rural states and states that are strongly pro-Second Amendment, they need to pay attention to this. Democrats could pass him on their own, but we continue to be able to work behind the scenes to slow it down, and we have.
Senator, I also wanted to give you a chance to give us an update on the crisis at the border. It seems like that's something that's been on our tongues for a while, sir.
Yeah, it has been. Since January the 20th, when President Biden announced he's going to stop border construction on the border wall itself, and he's going to slow down the way that we're going to actually interdict individuals at the border. Every single month since that announcement, we've had more people cross illegally the border than we had the month before. We had record numbers last month again. In fact, last week, just in one sector, just in the Rio Grande Valley, that one small sector of the border, with 20,000 people that crossed just that one small sector just last week. On top of that, I've been researching out when Biden actually stopped the construction of the border wall. What does that mean in contracting costs? What that has meant so far is that we have paid $2 billion, that's with a B, $2 billion to contractors not to build the wall this year, because we already had contracts to build the wall. And by the way, career professionals at Department of Homeland Security had already signed off on the design, the construction, the contractors, everything else. Some people want to say that this was Trump's wall, and President Trump was very clear it was the right thing to be able to do, to be able to secure our southwest border, to have a real barrier. But people forget the career professionals were also there saying the exact same thing. This is the right place, the right way to be able to build this barrier and to be able to block it. And so we have now paid $2 billion this year not to build the wall, while President Biden says he's studying the effects of the wall. I can tell you the effects of the wall from Border Patrol and Customs and Border Protection. They've all said they need it, they want it, it will help them in the border enforcement. But they're literally leaving this border opening huge gaps now, and have stopped construction.
Senator, also COVID-19 now to the Delta variant. What do you see on the horizon in the near future dealing with the Delta variant as well?
Well, I tell you, President Biden continues to be able to try to push towards some sort of national mandate. He's now saying he wants to be able to mandate all federal workers get the vaccine. I've been one. I've had the vaccine. Everyone in my family's had the vaccine. We've had no reactions. It's been terrific for us and been very, very grateful for it. And I've encouraged people to get the vaccine. But I am adamantly opposed to a mandate on this vaccine. If individuals have a religious reason or a health reason that they don't want to be able to take the vaccine, they should be honored in that process. So while I encourage people to take it, and it would definitely protect you against this Delta variant, it is not one that I think should be mandated out there. And I'm very concerned in the direction President Biden's going with this.
Well, Senator, always want to make sure and let our listeners know where the best place to keep up with everything you're doing on our behalf there in Washington as well, sir.
Yeah, they can always go to my website, lankford.senate.gov. It's G-O-V, lankford.senate.gov. And that'll have all of our contact information. They'll be able to email us, call in, visiting our offices. Glad to be able to stay connected with folks. You can go online and track us at Senator Lankford on all the social media platforms. But I tell you, I just encourage people to stay informed, stay engaged on this, continue to be able to pray for the country. There's a lot of things that are going on right now that we need to be wise in how we're making these decisions.
Again, Senator, always great to visit with you, sir. I appreciate you taking some time out of your schedule and look forward to catching up again real soon.
Look forward to it. Y'all take care.